refers to the Jews. They said, Allah took our promise not to believe. Hello and welcome again. In this video, I'll be looking at the Quranic chapter that upon close objective examination consistently shows Muhammad was just another false prophet who continuously failed at challenges to prove his claim to prophethood. Chapter 18 or Surah 18 is Surat al-Kahf, meaning the chapter of the cave. The story goes that it was revealed to Muhammad to help him respond to a challenge that would somehow prove his prophethood by asking him about old legends that he would know about if he was a true prophet. Muhammad had up until then consistently brushed off any demand that he showed them any physical miracle to prove his prophethood and legitimacy, brushing these requests aside with convenient excuses. I'm going to stray away from the topic of this particular chapter for a minute first, but it's important I give a few examples so we can understand how Muhammad was asked to prove his prophethood and what his excuses were to avoid coming up with a miracle he was clearly incapable of producing. Chapter 3 verse 183 refers to the Jews. They said, Allah took our promise not to believe in a messenger unless he showed us a sacrifice consumed by fire. Say, there came to you messengers before me with clear signs, and even with what ye ask for. Why then did ye slay them if ye speak the truth? This is clearly a non sequitur. This doesn't follow. Muhammad is telling them, look, if you want me to do a small basic miracle like sacrifice an animal by fire brought down from the sky, I'm not going to do that because your ancestors killed messengers. It just doesn't follow. It's a logical fallacy. In chapter 6 verse 8, the skeptics around Muhammad were asking for angels to prove his message. They say, why is not an angel sent down to him? If we did send down an angel, the matter would be settled at once and no respite would be granted them. Now, what is meant by respite here? If we look to the commentary in the tafsirs, it tells us that anyone who gets a sign then has to believe immediately, otherwise they would be destroyed straight away. Once again, another ridiculous excuse for not providing a miracle. In the same chapter, verse 37, and they say, why has not a sign been sent down to him from his Lord? Say, surely Allah is able to send down a sign, but most of them do not know. That's just a nonsense response. Most of them do not know what. If you look at some of the commentaries, they'll suggest that this knowledge is the fact that if they see a miracle and they still don't believe it, they would have to be destroyed as a people. By this point, the pagans knew he wasn't a prophet, so much so that they were willing to put their necks on the line. So they told him they weren't afraid of dying just to prove his message. They would in effect sacrifice their life and afterlife in return for others seeing definitive proof of Muhammad's prophethood. Chapter 8, 31 to 33. And when our communications are recited to them, they say, we have heard indeed, if we pleased we could say the like of it. This is nothing but the stories of the ancients. And when they said, O Allah, if this is the truth from thee, then rain upon us stones from heaven or inflict on us a painful punishment. But Allah was not going to chastise them while you were among them, nor is Allah going to chastise them while yet they ask for forgiveness. Another poor excuse. Couldn't God have struck them alone without harming Muhammad? Doesn't he have laser-guided technology at his disposal? Surely he's capable of anything. Couldn't Muhammad have ordered them to stand 50 meters away before this punishment was carried out as a sign for all Meccans to see? It says they were asking for forgiveness, but they clearly weren't. They were constantly challenging him and mocking him. Why would any just and fair God demand anyone believe without evidence? Muslims often say the Quran is literally a masterpiece in Arabic, but that is a subjective view. We just saw by reading verse 831 that the pagans at the time said the Quran wasn't impressive linguistically, and that they could easily come up with verses similar to it. Muslims would say they failed to match the Quran, non-Muslims will say they succeeded. It's subjective and should in no way be the sole criteria for which the pagans are to be judged when they believe all prior prophets had miracles and that Muhammad should show them anything impossible. Now I know some Muslims will claim Muhammad split the moon and NASA have confirmed this, but this is ludicrous and NASA have obviously denied saying such a thing. The absence of other civilizations not witnessing this split of the moon speaks volumes, so let's not even go there. But despite all these excuses, Muhammad eventually did accept one very easy challenge to try and prove his prophethood to the skeptics. This story is told in the Seerah, Muhammad's life story in the Ibn Hisham edit on pages 133 to 141, and also mentioned in all major tafsirs including Tabari, Qurtubi and Ibn Kathir. I don't expect or want anyone to believe what I say on faith, so as usual with all my videos, all my sources are linked in the description box so you can check them for yourselves. Now we're going to start here at the second paragraph where it says when Al-Nadr said to them. Just to clarify, Al-Nadr is in reference to Al-Nadr ibn al-Harith. He's a man who was very skeptical of Muhammad, who told him his messages were nothing but ancient tales. And as we're going to see later, he's going to cause him some embarrassment with this story. This is obviously not taken lightly by Muhammad, and when Al-Nadr is eventually captured by the Muslims, he is executed. The background to this is that Al-Nadr had gone to the tribes in Quraysh who were skeptical of Muhammad's message, and he was told to go and talk to the Jewish rabbis who were more informed about the history of the prophets and how and how one would go about confirming whether a prophet is genuine or not. When al-Nadr said that to them, they sent him and Uqba to the Jewish rabbis in Medina and said to them, "Ask them about Muhammad, describe him to them and tell them what he says. For they are the first people of the scriptures and have knowledge which we do not possess about the prophets." They carried out their instructions and said to the rabbis, "You are the people of the Torah, and we have come to you so that you can tell us how to deal with this tribesman of ours." The rabbis said, "Ask him about 3 things of which we will instruct you. If he gives you the right answer, then he is an authentic prophet. But if he does not, then the man is a rogue, so form your own opinion about him. Ask him what happened to the young men who disappeared in ancient days, for they have a marvelous story. Ask him about the mighty traveler who reached the confines of both east and west. Ask him what the Spirit is. If he can give you the answer, then follow him, for he is a prophet. If he cannot, then he is a forger, and treat him as you will." The 2 men returned to Quraysh at Mecca and told them that they had a decisive way of dealing with Muhammad, and they told them about the 3 questions. They came to the apostle and called upon him to answer these questions. He said to them, "I will give you your answer tomorrow." But he did not say, "if God wills." So they went away, and the apostle, so they say, waited for 15 days without a revelation from God on the matter. Nor did Gabriel come to him, so that the people of Mecca began to spread evil reports, saying, "Muhammad promised us an answer on the morrow, and today is the 15th day we have remained without an answer." This delay caused the apostle great sorrow, until Gabriel brought him the chapter of the cave, in which he reproaches him for his sadness, and told him the answers of their questions, the youth, the mighty traveller, and the spirit. I was told that the apostle said to Gabriel when he came, "You have shut yourself off from me, Gabriel, so that I became apprehensive." He answered, "We descend only by God's command, whose is what lies before us, behind us, and what lies between, and thy Lord does not forget." Before I explain the story in a little more detail, did you catch what happened at the end? Muhammad, claiming to be frustrated because he was made to look like a fraud, tells Gabriel why he didn't come earlier. And Gabriel answers, and his response becomes a verse in the Quran in chapter 19 verse 64. So, not all the Quran is God's literal word as Muslims will claim, as this particular verse was Gabriel responding to Muhammad. I find it a little bizarre that this made it into the Quran. Most other conversations we hear about between Muhammad and Gabriel don't get quoted as verses within the Quran. We just hear about them in hadith. But you know what? We'll let it slip and get back to the main topic. So the pagans, back from their advice of how to test Muhammad by the Jews, asked Muhammad about the story of the sleepers of Ephesus, an old legend that is largely recognized as a myth, even within the church itself, created in the early days of Christianity to